Jacksonville Jaguars will also asked for permission to talk with Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, which I feel like we've known for about 2 months.
That's not a good thing.
And defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. Good news is only one of them can be their head coach, you would think. So they've asked for permission to talk with both the Cowboys coordinators, both of the Bucs coordinators. I say to you then that the Jags are letting us know that they believe the Bucs and Cowboys are the best two teams in the NFL.
If you were hiring one coach from those four you just named, who would not be your coach?
Dan Quinn would be the last person I would hire.
Really?
Yes.
Huge Dan Quinn fan, huh?
I mean, I think he's great.
Why do you hate Dan Quinn so much?
He's great as a defensive coordinator, and I think maybe that's what his job should be, is defensive coordinator.
I mean, I think there's pretty significant evidence that would also suggest that, so that's a fair point.
Yeah.
He was really good in Seattle, was not a great head coach. His defenses were terrible, and then he came here and became a good coordinator again. It's pretty compelling evidence here to say he's a returner. There's no doubt about that.
But yesterday he said, I'm going to butcher the specifics of it. He's like, I'm not worried about that right now. I'm worried about kicking ass. And that's what you like to hear. That feels very Dan Quinn-esque.
Exactly right.
I'm just worried about kicking ass. And I mean, I feel like right now, don't Cowboys fans, Tolos, you can answer this, 877-881-1053. I feel like we feel better about our coordinators, both together, than we have in, I don't know, a long time. So selfishly,
that's a really good question.
I mean, I feel like it's been a long time.
It's been a long time since it was I feel good about the two coordinators that the Cowboys have.
So I want upward mobility for them because they're good, and I want them to also help my teams succeed and do good things in their life. But selfishly, I kind of don't want them to leave.
Would you hire Kellen Moore?
I wonder about hiring Leftwitch before Kellen Moore.
Especially if you're the Jaguars.
Yeah, exactly. And at the beginning of the year, or not at the beginning of the year, halfway through the season, I felt like this would have been it. It was almost wasn't it a done deal that Kellen Moore was going to be a head coach in the NFL next year? It just felt like it was going to happen.
Yes.
Now I feel like he's absolutely still a viable candidate, but I don't feel like he's unquestionably the lead candidate. Leftwich probably makes more sense. The thing is, I think you need to hire an offensive coach because of how stymied it feels like Trevor Lawrence was. And maybe it'll turn out that, I know people have been calling for it and saying that Trevor Lawrence is going to turn out to not be that good anyway, but, you take your chances, right? Especially since they said Trevor Lawrence will get a hand in this decision. I feel like they would go with an offensive-minded coach.
Maybe Ryan Day?
Oh, I see. I hadn't even thought about
how funny would that be?
I mean, as long as we're veering out, I do think.
What could go wrong from a former Ohio State head coach in Jacksonville? I don't think anything could go wrong there.
Nothing. I think it'd be fine. You could probably rule him out. It's not fair. It's like when people are never draft a Penn State running back.
Right.
Sometimes I'm sometimes that's not always fair, but I could definitely see how they would not be bringing Ryan Day on board.
See, the thing to me that I keep going back to in the years over which I've watched teams hire and fire coaches, the mistakes I think that are made are being enamored with schemes.
Yeah.
This coordinator presides over this really good offense or this really good defense, and therefore this coordinator gets hired because of it.
Right.
To me, and I think I said this yesterday, but schemes come and go. Find you a good leader, a good CEO, person that understands how to dictate where that they should be more involved, where they should be less involved. Good leadership, because that leader can hire a really smart offensive-minded head coach that can then install smart offensive schemes that leverage. I just think it's crazy, just based on what we've seen within the last few years, to hire a coach based on their schematics and how good this offense is or this defense is in a given year. There's so many factors in there beyond the coach. It's silly to do that. And it's not schematic related. It's like buying a house because they've got really cool appliances. It's you can change the appliance. How's the foundation? You see how
people fall into that trap?
Yes, totally.
I agree with you 100%. Now, here's the complicated part, because the other person that immediately jumped to mind was Eric Bieniemy. And
great example.
But then I start to wonder, because I've seen some people, they're starting to drag Byron Leftwitch. And this is something that I think is remarkably unfair, is people are saying, oh, Byron Leftwitch was nothing without Tom Brady. You do realize that the Bucs were third in offense the year he got there, right? Like the first year that Leftwitch was the offensive coordinator for Tampa, they were third in points per game. And that was the year before Tom Brady got here. Like, sure, I will concede that having Tom Brady as your quarterback probably made life somewhat easier, but that offense was clipping along just fine as soon as he got there, and they took a big jump. Yeah, I went to look this up. The year before, they were like 13th. So they were 13th in offense, and then Byron Leftwich got there, and then they jumped to 3. And if that's the case, like, how do I factor out Bieniemy outside of Andy Reid, outside of Patrick Mahomes? Like, part of the reason that these coordinators usually get a job is because the team ended up being good, or the offense ended up being good, probably because of outside factors. You know, it's not just the coordinator. Like, I'm not discounting the coordinator. I absolutely believe the coordinator had a. But do you discount Bieniemy because he's got Reid and he's got Mahomes? Do you discount this guy because he's got him or that? Like,
right?
It can play work in cooperation.
You can play that game forever. I mean, it's the whole idea of like, well, you know, this quarterback's not good because he doesn't have an offensive line, he doesn't have this. But then when they do have those things, it's like he's only good because they have those things. Like, so which one is it? Because very few quarterbacks are going to win and be successful without a good offensive line, without good receivers, without good running game.
I don't know. Like, and that's why I personally go with. I guess my list would probably be then Bieniemy, then Leftwich, then Moore, then Bowles and Quinn. And that's not shade against Bowles. I would think they would be more inclined to go offensive in Jacksonville, but they have asked to interview both Moore and Quinn.